Greetings, family. We are live. Sister Shanice in the house. Welcome, welcome to another Sister Shanice show. We have a guest, a beautiful guest lined up for you. You can see her image in the picture next to me there. Slight technicals, but yeah, she's going to be coming live and direct. So welcome, welcome, family, as you come through the door. We have such an important discussion that we're going to be talking about today, and the discussion today is just reinforcing the vision that Marcus Messiah Garvey had for us, as a people. He reminded us, he championed the Back to Africa movement. And so we're honored, and we're so delighted to have a guest today who has been instrumental and is instrumental in taking forward the Marcus Messiah Garvey movement and his ideology about us going back to Africa. So as we know, those of us who love Marcus Messiah Garvey, we know that he boldly made the call for us as Africans to go back to Africa. He said, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, and he'd reinforce that in his speeches, and he'd urge us, those of us of African ancestry, to never forget Mama Africa, to never forget where we're coming from. He would encourage us to own property, buy stock, and support Black-run schools, businesses, organizations, and shipping lines. He was a man of vision. He was a man who, through the UNIA, he made sure that his movement was about pushing us towards Africa. And so I'm delighted to have a guest today who's campaigning along the same lines. Over, 100 years later, we are still returning to Africa. We are still, determined to support Black businesses and determined to make sure that we carry forward the vision of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Okay, I can see my guest is backstage. So let me bring our guest front of house. Yeah, and family, you're going to have to excuse the dropouts maybe now and again, because, we're working with the challenges that comes with being on the continent. And the guest I have with you now is with us from the continent. Her name is Ambassador Ujana-Kandake Hutchinson-Sharpe. She's the ambassador and CEO of the Right to Return Alliance. She's also the director of Return to Africa Initiative and Cocoa Basket Initiative. And she's been a community activist for over 15 years in the African Caribbean community. She's an educator in the mainstream and community setting, and currently campaigning for a holistic Africa-wide policy for African descendants return home to Africa. Wow, wow, wow. We welcome our beautiful Queen, Ambassador Ujana-Kandake. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Sister Shanice. I'm excited. I always am, being able to be on some positive platforms to speak about our topic tonight. I'm great. I'm in Zambia. Today I've traveled to Gambia, Senegal, Egypt, Sudan, Tanzania, quite a few countries. And at the moment, my focus has been Zambia. So I'm also excited to tell you all about Zambia today as well.
Oh, awesome. We are excited to hear all about the Zambia family. As you come through the door, please do give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you can see us, hear us, tell us where in the world you are watching us from. And I'm going to bring our beautiful sister front of house so she can share with us, give us a bit of a feel of what Zambia is like. Oh my gosh. Come on, Queen.
Yes, so Zambia is in Southern Africa, for those who are not so familiar. It is a fantastic location for so many different reasons. For me, geographically, it's surrounded by so many other countries. You have access to Burundi via the northeast across Lake Tanganyika, and then you have Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Angola. DRC, I mean, you are spoilt for choice. If you are someone that wants to discover Africa, you can just land yourself in Zambia, and even by bus, by car, you don't even have to fly. You can literally travel to all of these other wonderful spaces and places on the continent. So for me, Zambia, for the person that's an adventurer and discoverer, is absolutely strategic where it is. And also, it's a completely massive space. So the different landscapes, the different weathers, where I am frequently in Mbala, it's a farming district. And it's the place where we've founded the Right to the Return to Africa initiative. And you can come to Mbala and you'll have heat, you'll have rain, good rains for agriculture. So for those interested in agriculture, Mbala is the perfect place. But you can also go to southern Zambia, down by Livingstone, an amazing falls there to sightsee, as well as safari. Plenty of safari in Zambia. So for those that want the experience safari, there's plenty of national parks across the country where you can see the wildlife. Other than that, very water-based. It has some of the greatest number of waterfalls per square kilometer in Africa. Some of the tallest and some of the greatest by volume being Livingstone. We also have Kalambo Falls, which is the tallest, also just near Mbala. And you literally can just tour Zambia just touring the waterfalls. It's just so beautiful. But in terms of the people and the place in general, I like Zambia. The place is very friendly. Very calm. I find it quite calm in Zambia, very relaxing. You can merge into Zambia very easily. There is industry here, copper being the most famous of the industries here, but you also have many precious stones and mines, cobalt. So in terms of richness and resources, Zambia is very rich. And it's very, very good for agriculture as well in terms of the capacity for exports. So if you're out there and you're actually like an investor, Zambia is a very good place to invest. It's growing year by year, and they're very enthusiastic in Zambia to partner. So in terms of even just investment, it's great. For tourism, it's great. And then we'll talk about resettlement as well as we go into the show.
Zambia sounds absolutely amazing. Oh my gosh, it sounds beautiful. I had no idea that Zambia was that beautiful. So it has the safari, it has the wildlife, it has the waterfalls and the space. I mean, it just sounds gorgeous. I mean, I've spent some time in Zimbabwe, which is, you know, the neighbor next door to Zambia, and the description is pretty similar to the landscape of Zimbabwe in terms of the size and the scale of the land and the space for the safari, the elephants, the giraffes, the lions, the waterfalls, of course, because on one side of Musuya Tunya, the smoke that thunders, that some of them call Victoria Falls. On one side is Zimbabwe, and the other side of the falls is Zambia. So,
That's
you know,
right.
literally, yeah. Zambia sounds amazing, sis. Oh, wow. And the people you said are welcoming. It's easy to do business there. Wow, wow, wow. You've already sold it to me. Let me just welcome the audience as they come through the door. Okay, my sis. And then we're going to come right back to you for some more about Zambia and the opportunities out there. Welcome, welcome, family. Welcome as you come through the door. I want to rise up our brother Leo in the house. I want to rise up Sister Afri Jamo in the house. Brother Gebra in the house. JJ, welcome, welcome. Golden Hearts in the house. Saying, oh, I love Africa so much. Oh, we all do. Verna, hey, rise up, Sister Verna in the house. Oh, from from Blacknificent Women. That's not Blacknificent Women. Oh, it is. Oh, I would just drop out my mind. So, Berna, you have to drop in Phenomenal Women. Drop a note in the chat about Phenomenal Women. Sister Afrijama, we love you. One of our loyal viewers. Thank you for tuning in all the way from Ghana. Oh, Golden Heart says she's going to be back in Africa next week. She's going to be in Gambia next week. Woo, woo. Welcome. Look out for you. Go travel abroad. Great to have you in the house as well. Shalom. Black First family all the way. B1 First all the way. Black First indeed. So to each and every one of you as you come through the door, Africa Reimagined. Great to have you in the house. Powerful young leader. Our brother is Africa Reimagined. Great to have you in the house, watching us from the continent of Africa as well. Icon Bay in the house, one of the presenters on the Big G Galaxy AfriWeek.net, the only de-brainwashing station. Welcome in the house. To each and every one of you as you come through, we are here, as you can see. We're about to start the interview with our beloved sister ambassador, Ujana-Kandake. Well, we've already started it. We've established that she's in Zambia. She's traveled quite extensively over the western and southern parts of Africa. And from the description that you've given us of Zambia, I'm sure all of us are going to have to put that on our list of places to go. Yep. Welcome, Tiaja. Welcome in the house. Oh, my beautiful sis. Thank you so much. And so, as I was saying earlier at the beginning of the show, our sister is walking in the footsteps of Marcus Messiah Garvey in terms of championing the return to Africa. And so I want to ask you to tell us about what is the Right to Return Alliance all about, my sis?
It's really based on the need that we move as a family. And that we move as a group, both economically, both spiritually, emotionally, as well as physically. The return to Africa is a very big move. We're talking about the African descendants that have been away from the motherland for 400 and more years. The place we left is not the place that we're returning to. The gatekeepers, the people that run the spaces and places we're in are named into different territories. They've been colonized. The mindset of our ancestors have indeed been shaped and changed to this day. So when we go back, we have to really recognize that unity really is the only way to success. We need to do this as a group. There are 54 or 55, depending on your politics, number of countries, and they all have different cultures. They all have different politics, governments, rules and regulations. And for us as African descendants that don't have a direct link back, through our maybe husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, we're literally just going back after hundreds of years to make that reconnection. You need to do that in a group in order to do so highly successfully. People have gone back as individuals, but we really do need to move as a family. So that gave birth to the Right to Return Alliance, which is an alliance of people who have either been working to repatriate people on their journey back home, or in fact are on the continent and receiving them and helping them to settle once they're on the ground. And we need both. We need people who are living abroad, Africans living abroad, and planning and coming together. And we also need our receiving parties on the ground where we're going to. So the alliance is that it's both Africans abroad and Africans living on the continent working together to make sure that the journey home is successful, and to actually promote the journey home, as there's many people, as we will talk about later, that don't even have it on their radar to go back home. So there's a lot of promotion involved, which has to really, as you said earlier, for the radio station, you've got to deprogram and wash our minds from the propaganda we've had over hundreds of years of what Africa is like and has been like. And it puts a lot of people off from having it on their radar. So there's a lot of positivity that needs to be out there, and also reality out there for people to even have it on their list, their bucket list, their hope, their dream to make it back home to where their ancestors were born and have been there for thousands of years.
Yes, my sis. As you said, that journey home ought to be on all of our radar. But, the image that has been painted of Africa is one, that the vast majority of people wouldn't want to go and see. And so there's a huge job to be done, to repaint, the beauty of Africa for the beauty that she is. And in the opening today, I mean, the picture and the image that you gave us of Zambia certainly made me feel as though this is somewhere I definitely want to go and visit during my lifetime. And so, your job, you're doing an amazing job already. And so everybody, I'm sure, that watches this video is going to think, maybe I should visit the Zambia. And so, and as you say, most of us, because of the separation during the enslavement between us and the connection that we have with the motherland and our family that was there and all the rest of it, I agree, we do need to look at returning as a group and as a family, so we can support each other in that transition, so we can learn from each other. And, with that in mind, I wonder if you could tell us, what do you do? How, would you be able to support, or are you supporting that return to Africa in any way at all? What do you do?
So there are many, many jobs and responsibilities going home. First of all, it's to really know the place that people are choosing to go to. So in the first instance, we support people to take that first visit if they haven't already been there. We have different organizations and people on the ground. Just to name a few, we have Sister Anqueta in Sao Tome and Principe. We have Sister Atona that's been on the ground in South Africa and also is a rep in the US. We have Sister Tabitha in Ghana. We have Sister Chipango here in Zambia. We have Brother Akumbum in the Cameroon, Brother Tahuti in Namibia, Brother Mark in Tanzania. We have Chief Fode, who's in Sierra Leone. And I just want to give him a public congratulations on just being named the High Commissioner General of West Africa through the organization UNIA and ACL, which is an amazing achievement. And he's done so much on the ground in Sierra Leone. If you ever want to go to Sierra Leone, he's the man to speak to. So all of these organizations, for example, they will greet you and give you an opportunity, some planned visits, similar to what Brother Huey does with AGA tours to Tanzania, Gambia, etc. There's so many of us. I wish I could name everybody. I love you all. You're all making sure that it's convenient, safe, and productive. You don't go there for very long, and you want to see as much as possible. So going on a tour, we highly recommend reaching out and going on a tour so that you can see as much as you can while you're on your first visit. And then secondly, once you've decided, oh, this is home, this is heaven for me, then we would help you plan how you can make that journey. If you need help, kudos to those that they are very competent, they're very confident, they're economically sound, so they can make it across without too much assistance. But for those that would like to either be part of a group, we have that facility as well, whereby we can help you on the ground, particularly with the paperwork aspect. You do need to initiate a legal status in whichever African country that you decide to resettle, or invest with. So you do need to make sure that your entry is done in a certain way, your visas, your extension to visas, your permits, whether that's investor permits, employment permits, retirement permits. There's a whole world of politics that you need to navigate, and there are rules and which differ from country to country. And that's why the other part of our work is to work on a holistic return for African descendants. So you don't have to remember, what do I do in Ethiopia? What do I do in Uganda? We would like all the 54/55 countries to come together and agree on how this unique set of beautiful African people, the African descendants from 400 years ago, of their ancestry, can come back and relink in whichever country of their choice. Some hold the view that you should go back to the place that your ancestor was kidnapped or trafficked from. However, my research shows that we have always been travelers as African people. We were in America long before everyone else. We have been in Europe long before everyone else. The kings and queens we read about in books, they were African people. Stonehenge is made on the same science as the Egyptian pyramid. So we are world travelers. Mm-hmm. And particularly on the continent, if you think about it, we have lost the ability to travel the continent and live where we want to live on the continent for 400 years, which means we basically could have been anywhere. So don't let politics hold you back. You know when you're home. When you get to that place, you will know that you're home, and just make that move once you find that place. So we will help with the politics of you going back and the paperwork, but we want everyone to support us and come together as that group to say to the 55 countries, look, we're coming back. We're coming back to settle. We're coming back to help develop. We are very well aware that Africa needs development. Africa needs protection. At the moment, people are coming in and leaving with our resources. So we are really coming back to make sure home is well catered for as well. So we would like everyone to join in the campaign that we're doing in getting a well-researched policy that meets the needs of the people coming back, meets the needs of the countries we're going into as a partnership. And this is agreed by all the countries so that we can navigate so much better.
Oh, absolutely. You're doing an amazing work. And what a fantastic global team as well you have on the ground. It sounds like an amazing network of organizations across the continent that you are working with, who are there ready to receive us, ready to support us. This is fantastic what I'm hearing. And absolutely agree. We certainly do need, a continent-wide repatriation policy for the diaspora and those of us who do want to return home. But, as you said, we've always been travelers, but I'm sure wherever we traveled to, we always knew where on the continent, we were from. And so, as you quite rightly said, though, we as Africans were everywhere. The original Africans of China, the original people of China were Africans, the original people of Japan, the original people of the Americas, the original people of Europe.
India.
We've been in those places, the original people of India. We've been in those places for hundreds of thousands of years, possibly millions of years. And so we've always been travelers, and there were no boundaries. We traveled from the continent to various parts of the world, and we settled in those parts for hundreds of thousands of years. But in terms of, our place of origin, where we originated from, that is, of course, Mama Africa. If we go back far enough, there would have been somewhere on the continent where we originated from. And so, it's where the spirit leads, I believe. And so, yes, where we need to travel the continent to see where our spirit says, this is home. This is where you come from. And to know that there are people there and organizations there that's ready to receive and assist us, it's a fantastic job that you're doing, my sis. And the campaign, to get the the continent to adopt a continental-wide return to Africa policy. Absolutely critical. Let me just quickly go over to the chat and welcome those of you who are just joining us. You know, we are having a wonderful conversation with our beautiful sister ambassador, Ujana-Kandake. So if you've just joined us, you know, we're talking about Mama Africa and how beautiful she is. We are changing the narrative. And all rise up, Sister Afrojamo. Yes, indeed. More of us are waking up to the beauty of Africa. You know, we are traveling and we are seeing Africa for ourselves. We are changing the narrative. We're showcasing the pictures and the images of Africa. And I want to rise up the diaspora who have been at the forefront, who were at the forefront of changing the narrative, because we know only too well the images that we were getting of Africa. And, you know, I'm a babe of the 60s. And so I saw all of those awful images every day on the television of the pot-bellied Biafrans with flies all over their faces, always there looking hungry with the begging bowls. If they showed pictures of the animals, they were always, you know, skeleton-looking animals. If they showed images of the landscape, it was always an image of drought. They have been doing wicked to Africa in terms of the way that Africa has been portrayed. And so when those of us like our ambassador here has visited Africa, we'd be like, what? Are we in Africa? Is this Africa? We have been absolutely struck by the beauty of Africa, by the beauty of the people of Africa, and how fit the animals are. You know, where I am right now, the cows roam around as freely as we do. You know, the cars stop so the cows and the goats and the sheep can cross the road. And the cow them over here, bigger and fatter than any cow I ever see in the UK while I was there. They make the UK's damn cow look like famine. The cow them over here. And the wicked people them are portray the cow them over here like skeletons. I'm not saying that there haven't been places and spaces at times where a drought has happened and, you know, the poor animals have suffered because they haven't been able to get to the water hole or what have you. And these people have been there with their cameras to give the impression that this is the whole of Africa. Not Nogoso. So what we are saying, every one of us as the African diaspora, you know, irrespective of where we are right now and irrespective of where, you know, we feel an attachment to right now, absolutely must visit a country in Africa. And our sister is telling us that there are organizations on the continent right there in Sierra Leone, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and Ghana, and Gambia, and all these places, all these wonderful places and spaces where are people on the ground to meet and greet you. These are exciting times, exciting times. We're returning home. We're experiencing Africa. We're reuniting with our family. When you land on the continent, the family is like, welcome home, welcome home. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyway, my sis, let me go back to you because there's so many questions I want to ask you about the works that you're doing. So you've told us about what you're doing. Can you tell us why you feel there is the need for a campaign, you know, concerning the diaspora descendants' return to Africa? You're involved in this campaign. Tell us about the campaign and why there is the need for it, please.
So outside of the fact that there are autonomous governments in each country and they all can dictate who they take in, how they take people in, how long it takes to get a residence permit, how long it takes to become a citizen, can you own land, can you not own land? I mean, there's a whole complete lifestyle that you need to appreciate is different in the different countries. But I would say why the need is because when you don't have a policy, unfortunately, it leads to vulnerable people and even not so vulnerable people being taken advantage of on the continent. So what I mean by that is land has been a big issue of us going back and getting land. You know, who does that land really belong to? Whether it's private, whether it's the chief, whether it's whoever that has given that land. There have been many issues because there isn't a policy for us going home, whether we can either own the land outright, whether we only can lease some places because we're seen as foreigners. You can only lease land, unlike the citizens of that country. Other places, you have to have permits in order to buy land. Other places, you can only buy land once you become a citizen. So there's all of these permutations, and the dream of most people going back home that I've noticed is that people want to have land. It's something they've never had access to unless they have come over from the Caribbean, where of course in the Caribbean, we have history there. So we have had land, been able to buy land. But in terms of those that have been in the West for generations in European-led countries, one of the dreams is to have land. Is to be able to have a little plot where you can grow your food, where you can build your own house. These are experiences that many are going back to Africa to have. And if you don't have, policies in place, people will offer to marry you, people offer you to partner businesses, and not everybody is honest. This is the reality of Africa, as there are people that operate in crime in every single country in the world. You're going to find someone in that country that also operates on that mindset. So it just keeps us away, and it keeps us safe. If there's a policy that directs you straight in, people that have to pay bribes and all kinds of things for people that actually should just be doing their jobs. That's also a reality that's there. It's not the picture every single office, every single country. What I'm outlining is just to make you aware that there will be times when people are going to be vulnerable, because you're going into a system that you have no experience of, no contacts with, no influence on. You're not a citizen or a voter of that country. You're walking in quite green and from an uninformed position. And that's why we say walk as a group, walk with people that have gone there before. Let them explain to you how it works there. And that's really a more methodical and more safe way to make that journey home. Of course, there have been beautiful people on the ground that are integral, honest. They have a high moral compass. They welcome you with open arms. But we have to be real that not every experience is going to be that. And so this policy really is looking at entry, not to have to worry about visas, permits, a fast track system to having a residence permit once you've decided this is where you want to be, and then a fast track to being a citizen. And then once you're a citizen, really and truly, you're home and dry. You'll have all the facilities afforded to everyone else that lives there with you. But until that point that you're a citizen, you have to recognize that you're still a permanent resident of somewhere else. Until you get through all of these boundaries. So for people that have made up their mind and they really want to live in a country, it's our human right to return to our country. For those that were forcibly removed from Africa, we didn't move because of economic needs. I think I can get a better job over there, let me go, or I can get educated better over there, let me go. We have generations of people that would have liked to have had the right to live without being kidnapped or forcibly removed. So in that sense, coming back, we are asking for African nations to have that moral compass and realize that there are a unique group of people that when they come back, they're coming back to be as, for instance, Zambians or Zimbabweans. We're not coming back as tourists or foreigners. We're not coming to just set up businesses, make money and take that money back out the country. We're actually coming there to develop the country as if it is our own, because in fact, that land is ours, just that we've been away for a while. So in that sense, the need for the policy also safeguards as well as speeds up the process. And as I said, makes it easier to choose any country and know exactly what you need to plan, exactly what you need to do. And just keeps you away from people that will give you wrong advice, people that are just looking to make quick money, consultancies that don't even do their job properly to get you through the door, give you promises. I can get you papers done. There's all kinds of things going on, which happens everywhere. Even in the shiny shores of the UK, there are many things that go on with immigration. So I'm not highlighting that Africa is particularly poor in that direction, but that situation exists in any country you're going into that has, legal frameworks for immigration. You're going to need to have some kind of fast track system, or it's going to take us a very long time, and it's going to be very expensive for us to simply go home.
Thank you so much for explaining, why your campaign is so important. Yes, we do need to have that consistent type of policy right across the board. And, that will help to ease us in, to the countries as well. And as you said, you got sharks everywhere, even in the UK and America, anywhere you go in the world. You're going to find people who will try and take advantage of you. And so, Africa is no different, but there's good and bad everywhere, But like you said, there are so many other benefits of being able to reconnect with your homeland as well. And of course, my sis, as you was talking, I was thinking, it's absolutely fantastic to have that reconnection with the motherland, to be able to relocate, have a piece of land that you can call your own, that you can leave to your future generations, because we all have to have somewhere. When we were kidnapped and taken away from the continent, we were taken away from our family's land. We were taken away from, the inheritance that our family would have left us. Some of us, our families may have had businesses, they may have had industries that they were involved in. There was a whole range of skills, and we knew the environment and where we were, and we were taken away from all of that. And so, what we're talking about here is, being able to reconnect back with that which we were disconnected from. That's important. But however, during the interim as well, there are many who have, settled outside of Africa and want to return home, but may not want to permanently relocate, but would like to be able to come and go as they please. What's the situation regarding dual citizenship from your organizational point of view? And also, while I remember picking up on some of the comments in the chat, people are asking, do you have a website for your contact details, of the other organizations that you've made mention of? So please do tell us about that as well. But first of all, dual citizenship, where does that sit within the scheme of things and your campaign?
That is different across the countries, landscape, the nations of Africa. So Zambia, it supports dual citizenship. Ghana supports dual citizenship. So at the moment, it's not across the board. Different countries will accept dual citizenship. The rule generally that I've found in my work is that the two countries are reciprocal. So if, for instance, if the UK recognises dual citizenship, then other countries that recognise dual citizenship will honour each other's citizens. That's the way it normally works. However, that's one of the things that we want in the policy, that because of the uniqueness of where we've come from and where we're going to, that we would like to have dual citizenship, because there are going to be relationships that we are leaving behind. We have families back where we've been settled, over 400 years, whether it be in the Caribbean, whether it be in the Americas, South and North, whether it be throughout Europe, whether it be Asia. And there's even diasporans in Australasia as well. So every continent, really, we're looking at. We will have some ties, particularly in the first and second generations of people going back to make it home. Not only that, but one thing I try and point out to Foreign Affairs and Home Affairs agencies and departments, there is a bonus to dual citizenship, because we have the experience of the places we're coming from. We know things that are exported, imported, business contacts, networks, whether it be social capital networks, which we're leaving behind, that we still need to be in touch with until we've settled, or whether it be economic networks where we have businesses where we can be trading across the continent, which is of benefit to Africa. One of the things I'd love to see is a tighter relationship between, in particular, the Caribbean, from where my family's from in Jamaica. So Jamaicans, there's loads of opportunities to have cross-trade. And for every other island in the Caribbean and within the framework of CARICOM. So dual citizenship, at the moment, you'd need to pick and choose, but it's one of the things that we want to have in the policy.
Fantastic. Yeah, because for generations now, many of us have been, located outside of the continent. And as you say, when we leave to go back to the continent, we're not taking all our entire family with us. And so, yeah, we've got those family ties and we need to have that flexibility to be able to go backwards, forwards. And you said you wanted this conversational style, and that's how it is. And we've got the audience as well who are commenting as we go through. Please do let them know your website details. I know you'll mention it at the end, but yeah, do let them know now as well how they can get in touch, what your web address is. I want to rise up those. Noah is saying in the chat, I've got a business in West Africa and I'm fighting with the blacks, the Chinese, the Lebanese, the churches. They're all stealing from Africa and the youths of Africa. And obviously when we return and we set up our businesses on the continent, we're giving jobs and opportunities to the youths. We're sharing the skills and talents that we've acquired whilst we were outside of Africa. We're bringing that vision, of development to Africa. And I'm not saying that we want Africa to end up looking like New York or anything like that. But, there's a lot that we have learned while we've been away that we can contribute towards the development of Africa. So, for example, where I am in the Gambia at the moment, there's a massive road program going on. They've dug up the road for about 10 miles. I don't know how long it is from one end of the city to the other. Now, we wouldn't have done it like that. It's chaos all the way. We'd have done it in phases. So you'd have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of the works with phase 4 of the roadworks development. But not here. They dug up the whole 10-mile stretch of road, and rainy season is around the corner. And if they don't finish this by rainy season, all of the work that they've done is just going to get washed away. And the roads will be like rivers, and all the sand that they've been piling up. It's just, we would have come, had we sat on the board, had we sat on the planning and strategy committee, had we been in a position where they could call on the diaspora to give some advice and suggestions, we would have said, one of us, okay, let's do it in phases. Have phase 1. Once phase 1's complete, and start phase 2. There can be a slight overlap between phases, but do it incrementally so there's not too much disruption. And so there's so much that we can contribute in every sector. Somehow I think though we've got to be more organized in all the countries that we're in, and form groups like consultancy groups. So all the people that go to Zambia, for example, you need to have a bank of skills. So, the 50, 100, 500 people that come to the Zambia, if they're in the medical profession, the architect, the building construction, if they're into industry, you know what sector and what skills they bring to the continent, so that we can then be a resource that the government and their various departments can call upon for, even if it's just some suggestions or advice or guidance or consultancy. Yeah. So we've got to organize ourselves in that way as well, so that we can have some, so we can offer some assistance, act as like a shadow civil servants kind of group, the ones that implement strategy. You've got the government and the ministers that do policy, but when it comes to implementation, we can see where the gaps and the shortfalls are, and we can help to fill that gap. So much potential. Agree with you in terms of the benefits. Phenomenal indeed. And as Go Back Travel Abroad was saying, they're even stealing our intellectual capital as well. How often do we see these jobs, come to England, we're looking for nurses, we're looking for medical profession, we're looking for this, stealing our intellectual capital, stealing and creaming all the best that Africa has to offer. And so, you know, we've got to reverse that brain drain. And so with those of us going back to the continent, we're bringing, you know, all that knowledge and intellect with us that we just want to share. So yeah, please do let our audience have your contact details, your web address, and let them know where they can get the contact details of all the other organizations, please, before we go on to the next question.
So the easiest way for us to manage the inquiries, because we get so many, just as I go about my tours and do meetings and do shows, I always direct people to the email, and that way I've got a track of who's trying to get in contact with the board. The board is not just myself, so I'm the ambassador. I go around making sure that people are aware of who we are, what we're doing. But we have Jazara on our team. She's our secretary, and Brother Tahuti, who's our treasurer. So we're the board of the Right to Return Alliance. Our website is, as our name says, righttoreturnalliance.org. And our Gmail is the same. It's righttoreturnalliance@gmail.com. So please reach out to us. We are all on the move. We have to be on the move. We need to see what's going on the ground, but we always get back to you. So if you can drop us an email, and even better, we all have Telegram and WhatsApp groups, which I feed into on a daily basis. So to know what the changes are in particular countries, what the narratives are at the moment, you can leave us your phone details, your cell number details, and we can add you into the group. That's one of the ways to stay tuned in. And we are going to start populating our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube accounts. We've really been doing a lot of work on the ground. So this year, we're now going to be pushing videos of how to get in contact with us, sharing our experiences this year as well. So there'll be quite a lot of material that we'll have online on social media platforms. But the first step is email us, send us your phone number so we can add you to our chat forums. And that way you can link with people that are possibly moving to the same place as yourself. So there's maybe a group that are going to Ghana, a group that are going to Tanzania. When you land on the ground, there'll be people there that have moved, not just the people receiving you. So it's really a lovely community to join. And we're having new people join all the time. Speaking of which, the other major organizations of which are doing work on the ground as well is SOAD, State of the African Diaspora. We admire the work that they're doing. We've got the Global Institute for Planning for Sustainable Development. They are again across the continent, dealing with just what you're talking about, sis, coming together and doing infrastructure and other investments for SMEs, funding for startups. So there is so many links that we have and can share. We welcome people to email us, and then we can start getting you linked to the nearest organization in your area, or the organization to where you're going to. So we're based in Europe, in the UK. Our head office is there, and from there we literally speak to everyone across the world. So please, that's the Right to Return Alliance at gmail.com. And then once you've sent your phone number, we can speak to you. If we're abroad, we can speak to you from Telegram and WhatsApp, and we can also see you on other platforms as well. And we welcome questions and we welcome case studies. A lot of the work that we're doing to put this policy together is based on real life situations. So none of this policy is based on would like to have. These are literally real things that have happened to real people. And we thought, hang on a minute, we need to manage this somehow, you know. And we've heard a full range of experiences from a full range of people. And just to talk about the range of people, some people are actually just trying to leave, a Western-run country and go back to Africa, and they just want the same life as they had in the West. They just like that in Africa, and that's fine. There's others that are coming, as I said, to do grassroots and buy your land, build your house. There's those coming for investment. So the policy that we have is going to cover all of these different types of people.
Oh, great. Absolutely fantastic. So family, you know how to get in touch with Ambassador and her team. You've got the email address, you've got the web address, and yeah, it's fantastic that you're all there doing such great works, and you're networking with all the other organizations out there as well. And, you know, loads of comments in the chat. The Buffalo soldieress is saying, yes, I grew up in the days of Tarzan, and it showed, you know, how naturally aware we were. But the Africans, you know, they were showed like people in the jungle. Yes, we all remember those Tarzan movies that were there to make us look hideous, make our people look hideous, you know, and to make us all feel inferior and embarrassed. But, you know, we're waking up and we're all heading out to Africa now, and we're seeing the beauty of Africa and how she really is. And so I want to rise yourself up and the others that are out there dispelling the myth, you know, of Tarzan and our people living in jungles and swinging in trees. Hey, in fact, I was talking earlier on my radio show, and very briefly just share this with you. They used to say, oh, how we live in mud huts, you know. And then I was saying about mud huts. I mean, how ingenious is it to make a building, yeah, out of mud and dung? And when you go inside these buildings, yeah, it's so cool. Outside could be boiling hot. You know, the sun could be coming down at 100 degrees, but you go inside of these mud hut structures and it's the coolest place you can be. But you go to America, you go to Florida, Miami, anywhere where it's hot, you know, you're in these concrete buildings and you've got AC going on. And then if you try and sleep with the AC on, you could get pneumonia and die. You know, so, you know, who's scientifically more advanced in terms of, you know, their building techniques, you know? And then the mud huts were environmentally friendly. They just used, you know, what was local, and it was just so fit for purpose. But here we were, you know, being made to ridicule mud huts. So when you see the beautiful designs on some of these mud huts as well, you know, they're just beautiful structures. And these people come along and want to ridicule them. And here we are in some parts of the West dying, you know, in buildings that are just too hot when the sun comes out. So, you know, we've really got to relook the way that we look at Africa and the way that we have been seeing Africa, because, you know, she's just so far advanced in a multiplicity of ways. But anyway, you know, so many more questions, so much more that I want to find out, you know, from you. I wonder if you can tell us also about this special decade, because this is a special decade, isn't it, in the field of work that you're doing. Tell us about this special decade and what it is you hope to achieve during this decade.
Absolutely. So as part of the work that the Right to Return Alliance is doing, we've noticed that, for instance, Ghana had their year of return, and then it was the year beyond the year of return. And other countries are doing different one-off commemorations. And it's all well and good. The countries are making lovely amounts of profit from the tourism that they receive from these projects. But we really need something long-term. And the question of today's show is, you know, are we ready to return to Africa, and is Africa ready for us? And the blunt answer is no, not en masse. So we actually need time. We need time to make progress, to make this relationship. We don't have a relationship necessarily, some of us, with our motherland. We have to rekindle a relationship, and relationships are not done overnight. Relationships are hard work. Anyone that's in a long-term relationship married, etc., you know that these things take time. You've got to get to know who you're marrying. You've got to get to know how they tick. You've got to blend in mindsets. We have totally different mindsets just across our own places abroad, much less when you go to 55 countries in Africa. Zambia has 73 different ethnic groups. They all have their unique languages, ways of doing things. So if there's 73 different ways of doing things in one country, just imagine what we're looking at across a continent. And a lot of people make that mistake. They talk of Africa as if it's a country. It really isn't. It has several different climate zones. You can have snow in South Africa, and you can be in the burning heat in the equatorial countries of Congo and the others in Central Africa. So in terms of the decade, we thought we'll start with the decades. It may go on for longer, but at least we can have a decade. And the decade is the historic return home of the African descendants back to Africa. We use African descendants because we're speaking in particular about those that are African descendants. They're not necessarily someone who has that direct link back to Africa through their parents or grandparents or even great-grandparents. So we're not, we haven't recently been resident in Africa. So that's why we talk about African descendants. We won't have access to citizenship. So like, for instance, as a Jamaican, even if my children are not born in Jamaica, I can give them a claim to Jamaican citizenship through descendancy. African descendants don't have that claim. However, you will find that some countries through genealogy proof or DNA testing, they will see that you are a descendant of that particular country, and that may be a pathway for you to go through. But many people don't want their DNA on record or go through that pathway. So it is going to take more than just a DNA test or an ancestry record for the majority of people to go back. So we need that 10 years. We need to understand the mindset of Africa. Africa has gone through a tremendous amount of stress through colonization, and the status of Africa also is in need of change. From dependency of debt, change of a mindset of waiting for investment and funding. My travels in Africa has led me to get to the overstanding, although there will be plenty of people who will disagree, that Africa does not need loans. It does not need the IMF. It does not need the World Bank. It does not need all of these structured and restructured loans from the US and China. Africa has enough riches to cover its debt and more, just from its resources, just from its intellectual capacity. There are inventors on the African continent that their inventions, patented, would make so much money globally. But it's just the mindset, the organization, and the integrity. That's what's missing for me at the moment. And I'm happy to take a long debate on this one. But, if we have integrity and stamp out, as best as we can, if our leaders can have integrity with their people, if we can be organized enough to know how to keep the resources managed in our country, if we have enough to know to trade in our own currency, if we know enough to, if we are going to take loans, take them out in our own currency. If you take a loan out in someone else's currency, then you don't stand a chance. But we actually don't need loans. Between the 55 countries, we can have an economic base, which then has a support fund, development funds within the continent itself. The passage of money doesn't need to leave the continent. It can stay within the continent. And the skills, as you rightly said, Sister Shanice, the skills from across the globe, and we have intellectual and social capital that if we share that on the continent with what's already there and organize it, we absolutely don't need any outside help. We just need to stop the smuggling, of our resources, tax havens, and accepting money under conditions that will ensure that we stay in debt. And as always, if we follow this model of so-called capitalism, which keeps the elite at the top, only a few rich people at the top, and masses with less in the middle, and people with nothing at the bottom, that's a capitalism pyramid, that doesn't work for Africa. It really doesn't. And models of ways of governing ourselves, whether it be democracy, which most of the companies preaching democracy don't even keep for themselves. It's quite laughable. The loudest propagator of we must be democratic doesn't have democracy in their own shores. We had kingdoms. We had kings, we had councils, we had elders, we had chiefs, we had systems in place. A lot of people don't realize we were just not, as you say, in mud huts scattered around the continent. We had kingdoms, we had cities, we had civilizations. And those civilizations were not wasteful. They were not based on the kind of capitalism that we have now. And certainly not on mass kidnapping and forced labor in the way that we see it now. So we have to have faith in ourselves and how to govern ourselves. If you follow the pattern of other countries, how can that really be any of use to you? You're not that other country. So our wealth that we have as people, both in our spiritual and emotional wallets, both in terms of our resorts. Africa doesn't need any loans. It just needs to get itself to a certain level of integrity and organization, and have all of its global citizens, because we're everywhere across the world, feed in and support. That's what I see other cultures do. They go abroad, but they also make sure that money goes back home. They come and study abroad and they take that skill and they go back home. There are certain things that other cultures can be seen as a good example for, that some of that can be taken as a good example for ourselves, to love and have confidence in ourselves, regardless of our leaders. Every country can complain about bad leadership, but a country is made of its people, and its people have choices. And we just need to recognize sometimes that we have agency, even as an individual and a smaller group. We don't have to be the president of a country to initiate change. We just have to want to change and unify and get ourselves organized.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely, my sis. Agree with you, and a lot of agreement in the chat from to what you're saying as well. Sister Afrijamo says that Africa does not need the West for anything. If we kick the West out, I guarantee you that we would rise and become a world power the very next day. There's so much in what you said there, and you're right. Sister Afrijamo, Africa doesn't need the world, the rest of the world. The rest of the world needs Africa, and the rest of the world, is plundering and taking Africa's resources for its own benefit and to the detriment of Africa. And we have believed the lies for far too long. We have believed the deception for far too long. But the great news is that everywhere I turn, I'm having these wonderful conversations with brothers and sisters about the continent who are seeing, a very different side of Africa, a side of Africa that they didn't know existed, a side of Africa that social media has been beautiful in helping us to show each other and expose to the world. And social media is great as well for helping us with the networking and the coming together and the sharing of ideas and the exchange and etc. And so we have to take advantage of this whilst it's available and make these strides, huge strides that need to be made, quick time as well, because I'm sure as soon as they can, they're going to start plugging up the gap. And yes, King Joe, we need to learn a language as well. I don't know if I'll go as far as you, though, or what you're saying here, because some of us are slow at learning extra languages. But he says it should be a mandatory requirement for anybody wanting to be an African citizen to be fluent in a local language of whichever they choose to settle in. fluent. Okay, I mean, I can do all the polites and stuff in Mandinka and Wolof, and I love to learn, but to be fluent, why? Yes, but I hear what you're saying there, my brother. Yeah, we have to be able to, integrate with our people, very much so. And in order to do that, we have to be able to communicate with them on a different level, on a level. Our brother Mundele doesn't like the term ethnic groups. He says, Yenge Lumbu Kiambote. Zambia does not have 75 ethnic groups, just like DRC does not have 243, simply because there is word for ethnic group or tribe in classical African languages. All right, so share some more with us about that, my brother Mundeli. We'd love to hear from you on that. And so, yeah, lots of discussions about in the chat about people planning to visit Africa, planning to visit Ghana. Like, they're sharing, coming to the Gambia, sharing, their plans to visit, and also sharing their experiences of visiting Africa as well. So it's great. There's a lot more happening on the ground in terms of that return to Africa than I think, is actually measured or recognized. I want to rise up everybody who is putting the myth of the Tarzan image of Africa, in the rubbish heap where it belongs, and is actually going out there and checking things out for yourselves. Well done to you for that. Let me ask our beautiful queen another question here. Now, thanks for telling us about, the importance of the special decade as well that we're in. I wonder if you can share with us what some of the main challenges might be for the African descendants returning home. I know you've touched on some of them already, but I wonder if you could just home in on some of the challenges, because there are, many who are planning to go. We're talking about going, and but just remind us, especially those who are just joining us for the conversation, what are some of the main challenges that you think we need to be aware of?
Ones that we haven't spoken about as such is really the mindset. The biggest challenge to this whole thing is your mindset. Your mindset is going to determine your success. It's going to determine your decisions. So when we speak about going back to Africa, the mindset of that person and the image of Africa kicks in. And also the other side, the mindset of our family that have been living there for generations and never left the continent. They have a particular mindset. So the overall umbrella of the whole of this are mindsets, the mindset of the government as to how they see us, if they feel that there are risks to us coming home. I'll give an example. If a country is quite undeveloped, I don't like that word, but thinks they are undeveloped and wants to modernize, or have high levels of poverty, governments have made it brutally clear, we don't want people to come here and then they're unemployed, they can't look after themselves. They don't want to add to their already perceived existing problems. And as I said, this is a mindset. For us, we see ourselves as coming to add value. And that's something that you literally have to sell. So one of the challenges, how we sell ourselves as people coming back. And it's amazing because we were sold to have left, and now it's almost like we have to socially sell ourselves to come back, which is why I'm saying this. There's a social compass that needs to be looked at from the mindset of the African governments that we speak to. Other mindsets are, I think someone just mentioned it, are language. So when I ask people, why don't you want to go back to Africa? They go, the language, it'd be a challenge for me to learn a language at my age, or just a challenge in general. And that can be dealt with. In Zambia, in the area where I am, they speak Bemba and Mambwe. And people, they will teach you how you approach people is how you'll be received. When you try and pronounce words and you're not too sure, they'll help you. There'll be a few people that will be looking down at you like, But that's, again, a mindset you just have to ignore. And so the organizations that we have, for instance, in Zambia, we have a learning center that we're opening, and that will have teachers that will teach the local languages. So if language is something that can and should be part of your coming home process, that can be done even before you leave the shores. As part of your plan, you can actually plan to learn the language. So when you go there with confidence. So languages can be seen as a challenge. Another example of that is where people have geared themselves away from the Francophone countries if they're English speaking in the country that they're currently in. So going to Senegal and other places, they've tended to say, no, it was a bit too much for me to go to those French speaking countries. So language definitely is a challenge, but it can be overcome. Again, we're talking about organization, and we're talking about the mindset to want to do this. It's fun learning another language. For me, it's, you can say a word thinking you're saying a word and you're saying something completely different, and everyone just falls about the place laughing. It should be a pleasure to learn a language. And those tones that you're going back and experiencing as you speak, those tones are reactivating something in your DNA. It's something that your DNA was accustomed to. You've got the DNA of all of your ancestors before you who did speak a mother tongue. So you're actually activating, and you're doing yourself a great service by learning a language. And when other countries ask you for their immigration, including England and China, you have to speak Mandarin. It's just across the board. You're not even going to be looked upon unless you've learned Mandarin. So making it mandatory to learn a language, I don't know if we need to use the word mandatory, but it's highly recommended and should be part of the process, because that's been a challenge of why people have chosen one country or another. Another challenge is the economics. When I say to people, well, why would you not consider Africa? The first thing is how they view of Africa. They don't realize the strengths of the countries, and there are so many different countries. But then they think of the safety because of the propaganda. Am I going to be safe? I really feel for Congo. They've made Congo look like, the minute you drop in Congo, there's going to be bandits jumping out, armed robbers. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And what I say to people is, yes, there are unsafe places in every country, including the UK. I could name a few of places that are you don't want to be walking there in certain times of the day or night. But going back to Congo, how are so many people living in the Congo if it is that unsafe? Surely, if it was that unsafe, the population would not be there. So let's just use some common sense. Yes, learn the places that are best for you to be. Yes, move as a group. Yes, move with people you can trust. That's just across the board, wherever you're going to go to. I've gone to the United States and I've seen some stuff there, places I would not want to be, people I would not want to associate with. So safety is a challenge in people's mindset as to where is it safe to be. And that's on the list too. And then economics. How will I survive if I go to Africa? If you're treated as a foreigner, I think South Africa, they want you to invest $1 million, and other places, $500,000, other places, 250,000. Zambia have recently changed their legislation that you can partner with a business as a so-called foreigner for 50,000. This is all in US dollars. Who has 50,000 US dollars? Some people do. They can sell their houses where they've been, perhaps in Europe, and the value of their house may give them that. But however, it just is very demoralizing to think that you have to buy your way back into your homeland. And people have expressed that. And at the same time, there has to be balance, because, as I said, the place you're going to is struggling. It's struggling because its economic basis for being has been compromised by colonialization, physical colonialization, and now economic colonization. So please be aware that we're going back to a place, as I said before, that needs to be secured. And we're part of that securing process. We need to be in partnership with the family that's there on the ground, that know the ground, and bring in whatever assistance in the form of our social capital, intellectual capital, our spiritualism. Africa is very religious. Some of us in the West, we've long discarded Eurocentric religions. We've found our spirituality in Asian African Kemetic sciences and other traditional ways of expression. So, going back, even that is something of a conversation to be had. Our way of life, our cultures, our healthcare, holistic medicine. That's another thing that we can bring back. Some of us have studied quite extensively out in the Western world and realize that the pharmaceutical way of life, popping pills, it does not suit our DNA. It's not manufactured for us. There are other ways of living, systems of living that we can go back and join with those who've kept their traditions. There are traditions on the motherland which have not died away. They're still there. So there's so much we need to reawaken and put back into the mainstream. It's actually an exciting and fantastic and needed journey that we need to make. So the biggest challenge, I would say, is mindsets, being able to understand the mindset of where we're going, understand our mindset. Some of us are actually dysfunctional out in the West, and to bring that back to the motherland, that's another issue altogether. Some of us don't get on with each other out here, and we're going to take that attitude back to the motherland. Some of us have got some inbuilt arrogance because we think we're in the important West, from our mindset of white supremacy that we've adopted, whether we like it or not. Some of us carry that with us back and think we're entitled to this and entitled to that when we get back to the motherland. So we've got some serious cleaning up to do, some serious self assessment to do, and we need to learn to get along. We really need to learn how to work together. We can't be the same, but we need to somehow get our spiritual selves together. We're all linked spiritually, so there is a way to be unified if we work on having that enlightenment. I'm not talking about a utopia. I'm talking about a real energy that we share amongst each other, real telepathy we share amongst each other at times as well. I've seen groups of people just suddenly get the urge to say, I need to get home. And they don't know each other. They're across the world. Yet, it's certain years that have passed. I've seen people like, I need to go now. There is this spiritual connection, and our ancestors are speaking to us all the time, directing us, guiding us. So when we have faith in ourselves and our ancestors, as opposed to other people's images, religions, and mindsets, we actually overcome most of these mindset issues very quickly and comprehensively. So I would definitely say a challenge is some self-development, some self-assessment, patience, virtue. When you get there, you're going to have to understand mindsets of people, have patience, tolerance. I see you smiling, sister, because I've been to Gambia. There are some challenging attitudes in Gambia. But, I have people that have moved there for 10 years and more, and they've learnt that relationship. They've got on with it. They know their home, and they'll take home in whatever fashion it is. And sometimes when you've been away from home and you come back, you've got a clean house. There's certain things that shouldn't be there. So we've got to be real. It's not a bed of roses. You've got to clean house. You've got to get it back to where you're most comfortable. So I'll leave it there for now with the challenges. But that's a big subject. That's a whole show in itself.
Oh, well, thank you for touching on some of the challenges for us, sis. It helps to prepare us for making that transition. And I want to thank everybody in the chat as well that's suggesting some of the great cities on the continent that we should visit as well. There's so many places. If you go to the Ivory Coast, they're saying go to Abidjan, better than London and parts of Copenhagen and Amsterdam and Rome. Wow, wow, wow. You know, because our minds, and I agree with Kwame here, saying have been manipulated so much that, you know, we've got this idea that Africa's a jungle, famine and dirty. But he said when he landed in Accra, he saw houses, market, street, school, and he's like, you know, thinking probably, wow, am I in the right place? And, you know, the reality is, and you said it as well in the earlier part of the show, my sis, you know, Africa was a continent of kingdoms and empires, and, you know, the buildings and the palaces and the structures that existed, the great cities that existed on the continent, we can't even begin to imagine, because over the thousands of years, you know, all of those cities have been just like destroyed, or right down, you know, the bricks, everything, you know. So we are seeing, you know, a very an Africa that has been totally destroyed, and now we are rebuilding, and Africa has been, you know, rebuilding itself, and in many cities, you know, quietly doing so. And so it's great to know, you know, the development that has been happening and has happened. And the other Kwame is saying, go to Stanton, Randburg, Joburg, Cape Town, Newlands, Constantina, Durban, Tiswaini, you know, better than Berlin, Milan, and Brussels. And the other Kwame is saying, you know, Accra, Timbuktu, and Addis Ababa, my favorite African cities, and, you know, more places. And go to Abuja in Nigeria. My gosh, they say go to Lagos Island, Banana Island in Lagos, better than Knightsbridge in London, the UK. And of course, you know, those of us that have been to Jamaica can talk about parts of Jamaica that is just like paradise, you know, and the continent, the Caribbean, it is paradise. And although we're talking about Africa today, a lot could be said about, the same could be said for the Caribbean, how they used to portray the Caribbean, you know, as like tin shack buildings, no concrete structures. The images that we were shown, you know, of Jamaica, for example, was the real downtown ghetto areas. You know, they would go with their cameras on the back of their trucks, and they would find the worst parts, the most run down parts in the gully areas, and portray that as the whole island. And then when I started visiting Jamaica for myself, and I'm like, this is paradise. This is beautiful. The waterfalls, the hills, the mountains, the valleys, the water, the blue, pristine seas. And compared to you just wouldn't see seas and beaches anywhere like it, or anything like it in the UK. We're talking about paradise. Our country is a paradise. You know, those of you that know the James Bond movies and the sort of settings that you see in James Bond, they get them from Africa and the Caribbean. And it's like, how dare they portray these beautiful countries in such a negative geography and, you know, untrue way. But we're all waking up to the reality of the beauty of our continent and the beauty of the Caribbean islands. And we must wake up those who are yet to wake up, and drag our families if necessary to come and visit, so they can see these places for themselves. Otherwise, you know, their plan to make us want to run away from these places so they can run in and steal all the resources is going to work, and we cannot have that happen at all. So rising up, everybody in the chat that's just sharing, you know, between yourselves, you know, what you have seen when you've traveled abroad as well. I've posted the email address and the web address for our ambassador in the chat as well, so make sure you make a note of it so that you've got one there. And who's saying, yeah, people have, like, you know, gone and their eyes have been popping open, how great and how beautiful our countries really, really are. So this is wonderful. These are exciting times. And, you know, Marcus Messiah Garvey must be smiling in his grave right now, you know, to know that there's ones and ones like yourself and the many others who are out there, as organizations, as families, as groups and individuals that are returning to Africa. As he said, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. So tell me this, I mean, your organization and the works that it does, is it focused on Africans only or primarily Africans? And where does it stand with other races? Because we know that other races are in a better financial position than we are to, jump on planes and go and visit Africa. I mean, when I first started visiting Africa, 99% of the plane was white people going to Africa, say 80% white, 18% Chinese and like 2% black. But it's good now to see when I go on the planes, the larger percentage of us as Africans actually traveling to Africa from Europe. It's wonderful. So, I mean, who are your target audience? Who are you targeting these services for? Is it for white Europeans, or is it for Black Africans? Where do you stand on that dynamics? And of course, maybe there are mixed families as well. What's the situation there? Who are we encouraging to return to Africa?
Okay, so the priority is very plain and straight. Africa must be strong for the entire planet to survive. So the priority right now is for African descendants to get back there and for that partnership to be had and for Africa to prosper and grow. We're looking at food crises. Africa could literally feed the world. The technology that the West is built on, if Africa decided, no, we're not sending one more bit of cobalt, bauxite, copper, technology out here, will shut down. So the priority for the next 10 years that we've set our agenda for is for African descendants to make that journey back home. And for those partnerships in terms of investment and development, those are the ones that we're targeting. I have to say that in all the countries I am, other races are there full stop. Whether you're looking in Asia, Arabic nations, whether you're looking in Europe, European nations, etc., they are there. There isn't really a concern. They get on the plane, like you say, I'll be on the plane. They are there. They're coming back and forth with confidence. Because they know the reception they will get on the other side. The expectation is that foreigners have money, and many African nations welcome foreigners for the tourism, the money they'll spend, and the money that they'll invest. So I haven't identified an issue on that side. My hands are absolutely full with the time, which is now, for African descendants to go back and ensure that Africa can prosper. And to underpin that, the African Union also invited what they call the African diaspora back home as an integral part of Africa's Renaissance, its development by 2063. So it's actually a global acknowledgement that the African diaspora, as I call them, Africans living abroad, especially African descendants, they have been invited back, and the constitution of the African Union was amended, Article 3Q, just to underpin that, and underpin that is the goal and the mindset of the AU. And in fact, the AU needs to do a lot more in terms of getting the policies and recognition for African descendants going back. In terms of people in relationships with mixed heritage, I can't see an issue there. If you're an African descendant and you're going home, you bring your family, whatever that looks like. We have mixed wherever we've been living. Even between the islands, we've mixed. Our peoples have mixed. When we went there, we came there from our clans over the motherland, and we've mixed. So right now, I would say it's more important for Melanite people living abroad to unite and go back. And in fact, There are also those that have recently left the continents that are in Europe and America that also want to get back to Africa. They also want to go back and be part of that development. So we're talking about quite a few groups that are going to be unifying and need to unify to make this work, and to make this work sooner rather than later. Sorry. So for us, the most vulnerable group are the African descendants, because they don't have the current political paperwork to easily go and settle. Some places are easier than others. I'd like to mention Liberia at this point, which was where land was secured for those wishing to go back to Africa. So Liberia has a very generous policy. You know, you can go there within a month or two, you can gain residency, excuse me, and you can fast track to citizenship. So long as you're an African descendant, in you go. And there are other countries which do allow quite a smooth passage in, but they're few and far between. And when you go to countries that are not on the Western part of the continent, for instance, SADC countries, they have a different mindset, because they don't particularly view themselves as being that connected to those points of no return. So within SADC countries, you would find that African descendants will need that support to go back and get those vital pieces of paperwork, because you do want to stay in the system. You don't want to go into countries, and it has happened, people have just disappeared and living off grid. In this day and time, we do advise as best as possible that you go home planned and organized, and that way you can add value to the nation that you're joining. So I would say, you know, let's not make a problem where there isn't one, but let us also focus on the priority of Africa's prosperity and its need for its children to get back as the first priority. Then we can worry about who else is coming or not coming. We made it a priority from the Caribbean to come and clean up in the UK after the war. We thought that was our priority, to get into the UK and serve our so-called queen and clean up, and the streets were paved with gold. You know, our ancestors, some of them, and then our parents and grandparents who are still with us, they got on a ship not knowing what they were going to find on the other side. You know, some flew, left their families behind. So my parents, when they said, "Oh, why, you know, are you going over to Africa?" I said, "Well, you came from Jamaica and came to England." I said, "This is my turn. We're going to make the full circle back in that triangle. You know, I'm just as ready as you were to leave Jamaica, to build up England, to leave England and build Africa." So we're doing the same thing, just that we're going in another direction.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for that reminder. You know, that in recent times we did it, so we can do it again. We can pack up our, you know, our grandparents and then some of our parents. They came over with one suitcase. They call it a grip, isn't it? Just one suitcase. And they made a life for themselves. They were prepared to work hard and do whatever jobs was needed in order to make a life for themselves. I think, though, going to Africa, as you said earlier, the jobs are not actually there for us. So we have to come and bring our skills and talents and apply those, you know, collectively, so that we can create those business and jobs for ourselves and for others in the local community as well. And where there are jobs and opportunities, and where there are gaps, and the government needs people with specialist skills to come in and fill those gaps, they should, you know, call on the diaspora. They should make a bigger appeal, like the UK did. You know, when, like you said, after the war, when they wanted England to be redeveloped, who did they call? They called us from the diaspora. They called,
right.
our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers from Jamaica to come and help to build their country. And we built their country. And so, if any African government wants to look at the UK model, like they love to look to Europe for all of the answers, they will see that there is already a model. Just call us, call our people, and we will come and help, to build up Africa. And same way we built up England, we can build up Africa. You have the plan, the African model, and we will help you to find a way to do it. And of course, Africa's got the skills on the ground as well. There was someone saying in the chat that, some of these leaders are so selfish and so greedy. They don't even want the diaspora coming because they don't want us to wake up the masses. They don't want us to help to uplift the masses because they're quite happy for the masses to be, where they are in their poverty-stricken state, And so that is such an awful comment, but yet so true in many quarters and so many places as well. So yeah, if we're coming, we're looking to improve the country for everybody, and we can see the improvements that's needed. When we walk around the continent, we can see the improvements that's needed. We don't want to take anything away, from the skills and the talented that are already there, but those masses that the leaders are overlooking, the skills and scientific knowledge. Look at, the inventors in Africa, the people like, what's his name, Charles Okumboso, whatever his name is, from Zimbabwe, who made, those car that could run off of, it defied science, basically. Cars that could run off of air, that didn't need any of the, traditional energies to run, the television that didn't need to be plugged in, that could, function without. He was just defying science with his inventions. Just imagine, if we built an industry around that. And we had all these helicopters, coming off of the conveyor belt, that could run off of, I don't know what it's running off, but it wasn't oil or petrol or anything like that. So we got the talent. We've got the talent. We just need to know how to, how to support it and how to industrialize that talent. So great comments in the chat. Everybody's loving the conversation. So very importantly, my sis, I mean, you've talked so much and you've shared with us, the beauty of Africa, where there is to go, what to look out for, what some of the challenges are. You've told us about your organization and the campaign that's running over the next decade, and the special decade for the diaspora return to Africa, and the big question is now, is Africa ready for us to return? And if so, to what extent? You've touched on it already, but, you might want to home in. Is Africa ready for our return? What is your view on
that? It's a very mixed picture. We've spoken about the government view already, and they deal with immigration. So we know the challenges of immigration from a political perspective. I would say on the whole, when I meet with chiefs, kingdoms, queendoms, they are ready for their children. That's how they refer to us, the children of Africa, to come home. So instinctively, yes, Africa wants to see us home. Others, because they do see us as separate, excuse me, they are suspicious, wondering, what are we bringing home? Some of them have their own stereotypes. We have stereotypes of Africa, but trust me, there are stereotypes of Africans living abroad. Everybody's rich, everyone has money. You'll go to places and they will expect to overcharge you because you can afford it, not because it's right, not because they are giving you that service, but because, you should give us more because you have more. That you are going to be received in different ways. I would say the majority are welcoming you home. In Zambia, it's welcome home all the way. But the economics say that people will, if they can, give you tourist prices, as I call them. So I always say to them, don't give me a tourist price, please. I'm not paying that. Taxi drivers, everybody wants to get a piece. And it's a mindset of struggling for money. So we know where it comes from. And I think you need to, as I said earlier, prepare yourself for what people do in certain economic environments and their reaction to those environments. I'm not saying that they are the right responses, that they should be overcharging people and clearly ripping people off when it comes to land prices and everything else. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm saying it's there. And I'm saying for you not to have a migraine every day, stepping out, trying to negotiate and live, you're going to have to realize where it comes from. And you have to, set an example. And the examples, are definitely there. You build relationships. Once you speak the local language, once you build up relationships, you don't get no tourist prices. They see you more as their own. And they do really love getting to that stage where they call you their own and family. But there is a transition. There is definitely a transition that will be made. In terms of, is Africa ready for us for investment? 3,000%. They want to move ahead. And there's so much to do. I just can't even tell you, even within just Zambia, as you travel around, your eyes and your brain will just explode with things that you can see, that you could do to make a difference, to, add your bit of development, learn different ways of life, and there's just so much to do. It's just so much to, you can't even really say it, you have to see it, to be honest. In Zambia, people refer to Zambia as landlocked. That needs to be disposed of. It is land linked. Those 8 countries that it joins, you have waterways, lakes. There are beaches in Zambia. Just because it's not a saltwater beach on the ocean does not mean we do not have beaches in Zambia. So when you get to the motherland, you get to know the country, and you'll see that Africa is ready for us. We just don't know home. We need to get to know home. People want to partner, people want to be married to all different types of people. You can come find the person of your dreams maybe and settle. And people want partnerships. Some people do want to actually come over to the West as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. There can be a bilateral relationship. I would love to see the younger people making that exchange. So that the younger generation of Africans, Africa will have the youngest population by far in the world, if it hasn't done so already. And it would be so good for the young people in the diaspora, the African children living abroad, go home, experience home from a young age, so they don't grow up with the stereotypes and the mythology, and the vice versa. The Africa that has this, again, propaganda image of what it's like being abroad, those young people need to go over there as well. So for me, one of the important things about the Right to Return Alliance and the organizations is that we have a very vibrant youth exchange program. So the two sets of young people, they join together and become partners. That would be the greatest achievement of our lifetime, to have the two sets of our kings and queens, future inventors, future scientists, future everything, join together from the gate and develop and grow and prosper together, as a partnership on the motherland. So looking at education, I would say the education in Africa does need to be decolonized. Again, some will disagree, but Africa is not ready in terms of the education that is needed for those young people to have, and I don't like the word jobs either, just above broke. They need to have careers and they need to have businesses. those are long-term sustainable things. Jobs are not sustainable. They come today, they may be gone tomorrow. They pay you at something that is your ceiling. You won't be getting any more money. Whereas if we grow the young people to be entrepreneurs, they'll always have something. They may have a job, but they'll also have something that they can call their own, that they can grow, that has no ceiling. You know, their altitude will be linked to their attitude. I would really, really love to see the alliance grow with more organisations that are doing this kind of work. So more of us are on the same page, working together. More of us are endorsing the policies. More of us are looking to empower the youth, and where there are gender differences, to empower women as well, to have an income where it's needed. We're not talking about feminism. We're talking about skills, business, where it's needed, where it works, without compromising our children, who definitely need a beautiful to raise. So we need to raise these children together. We also need money and economics to keep our standard of living comfortable. And this can be done in partnership with us coming home, and with us really starting to get this workable and sustainable relationship up and running again.
Yeah, beautiful vision. Really love the fact that you touched on our young people and the importance to bring them along as well, because what we absolutely don't want is this wonderful vision and movement to die with us when we die. We want to, our young people walking in our shoes, alongside us, behind us, in front of us, who are there, ready to integrate and take forward the baton, and to continue bringing more young people to the continent. And, whatever it takes, we've got to get them out there holidaying, maybe going to concerts and events, or, partnering with musicians, or, IT techies, whatever sector or field that they're in. Yeah, I agree. We need to have those exchanges going on, so that we've got excuses for the young people to be working together. So thank you so much for that. Comments in the chat. Again, what did I pick up on just now? I mean, so many comments coming in. I want to thank you all for the conversations that you've got going on between each other. Oh, yeah, this was a funny one. Amin Man said, can you start a dating agency?
Love it. Oh, wow.
African queen, and he wants you to start a dating agency. That's an idea that you put out there. Who knows? So someone who's interested in finding their match.
Well, I mean, the thing we need to do is to get back to some well thought out relationships. So, of course, we can get the chief of the local village to sit down, and you would have your side speak and vouch for you, what you're like. And then the local person, they would sit down with the chief and do the same. And of course, we can see where there's a match made in heaven. We can really get into that if we need to.
Yeah, because Africa is heaven. What does King Just say? King Just says, Africa is ready for all those who are ready. For Africa, regardless of how much money you have. Tread carefully while in Africa, humble yourself and talk less, especially about money. It's in the soul. Okay. And Amin Man says, simplicity we use to survive. Yes, indeed. If you can, enjoy the most precious things in life, such as the environment, the animal kingdom, the insect world, the beaches, the mountains, the scenery. If you can enjoy growing things, tomatoes, planting trees, ackee tree, mango trees, papaya trees, whatever. If you can just enjoy that side of life as well, you'll have an amazing time in Africa. You really will. Well, my sis, let's ask you for some concluding and closing remarks now. I mean, it's been a wonderful, beautiful conversation. The time, as it does, just runs on by when we're having fun. And the audience has been amazing. They've just so embraced all of what you're saying. And it's clear that everyone here just loves Africa, wants to visit or has been
Good.
visiting, and just wants to share in, spreading the different side and the truer image of Africa. So we love you all, each and every one of you in the audience. Thank you so much for sharing. So, but let's allow our ambassador a few minutes to make some closing remarks. What would you like to leave us with? What thoughts, what messages do you want to
Okay,
leave us
so it's about action and not talk. So we had a beautiful discussion, but I have to end with some action. So action points. So action point number 1 is please visit our website so you have our contact details and you can see what we're up to at any given time. We have just changed our website, so we are still uploading. So do check back regularly as we get all these interviews and all of the things that we're doing, particular projects, tours. If you want to get to a particular place, all of that stuff will now be uploaded onto the website. So for those who haven't got that as yet, it's right to return alliance.org. Email us if you want to, as an organization, come on board. There's the sky's the limit. We can take on as many organizations as we need to. We want someone in every single African country, and we want someone in every single country where our people are traveling from. So this is going to be one massive family and network working together. So please, 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 if you're Pan-African organization, business in the European, Asia, and Americas continents, please get in touch with us. You're vital for people to be the first port of call. And then also, if you're on the African continent, doing the works there, meeting, greeting, getting the tours together, helping with investment, helping with development. Again, we are wanting everyone to come on board to build this relationship, to build this network. So again, right to return alliance@gmail.com. We also would like people to endorse the work that we are doing with our holistic policy, a policy that can be shared amongst all African nation states so that we have a smooth transition. What we ask is that you read through our goals for the 10-year decade, and if you are happy to support what we're doing, we ask for your logo or your business name. We want to be able to show the nation states that this is something we truly do want en masse. So we're asking for you to support us in that way, and please join the organizations on the ground. They have memberships as well. Volunteers, if you want to come out and volunteer as well while you're out visiting the countries. There are so many opportunities. So the main thing is to get in touch, spread the word. Africa is the place to be. If you have concerns over wanting to relocate, please get in touch with us, again, via the email. And most of all, work on that mindset. That is our biggest thing, our mindset and our relationships. That is the work I want you all to do, along with myself. We have to work on these relationships. If we do this as a group, if we do this with some common shared ground, there is nothing that we cannot succeed in. Our ancestors have said this is the time. And when they say it's the time, it's going to happen. So, why not do it in fine style, with the right to return alliance.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, sis, for sharing with us, the information that you provided about the wonderful works that you're doing and all the organizations that you're networking with and all the different countries that you're operating in. It's great that we've got your email address and your web address so that we can now take action, and follow through. And and family, I mean, it's great in the chat. I can see a lot of people have already planning to visit. They're saying they're coming home soon. They're going backwards and forwards. And this is the sort of relationship that we need to have with Mama Africa. And to those of you that maybe joined us late, remember the clocks went forward in the UK. So we're actually starting the shows an hour earlier if you're watching us from outside of the UK. And so we thank you so much for joining us. We thank you again, Ambassador Ujana-Kandake. Just want to let the family know who we've got coming up next strong. Next strong, we have our brother, Dr. Charles Finch III. He is, deep into our history. And he's basically conducted independent studies in African antiquities, comparative religion, anthropology, and ancient science. And he's been doing that since 1971. He's published more than a dozen articles, including the African background of medical science and the science and symbol in Egyptian medicine. And he has a collection of Dr. Finch essays as well. He's got a background in medical science and published at Carmack House in London. Wow. We have a phenomenal guest. As always, another phenomenal guest on the Sister Shanice Show Next Strong. So to those of you, family, who are regular viewers and supporters of the show, thank you so much. To everyone who's new, welcome. Please become a subscriber. And to those of you who watched today's show and enjoyed it, please remember to give us a thumbs up and make a comment under the video as we leave here today. So Sister Shanice out of here for now. All being well, I'll be back next strong, or you might say next week, but I'm going to say next strong. Put your plans in place to visit Mama Africa if you've yet to do so. Rising up, every single one of our family members. Be putting your plans in place. Mama Africa is calling you. It's time to return home. Rising up the memory of Marcus Messiah Garvey along the way. Thank you, sis. More love, more strength, more wooden power in all that you do. Bye for now. Bye for now, family.